There's not that many universities that have research vessels.
This is the most unique class I've ever taken.
It's a lot more exciting and kind of interesting because you actually get to work on something with a real application.
This class is actually amazing. It's more focused on me and what I think, my ideas.
I've taken a previous course in ocean science, and just in general, I think that it's a very fascinating field and wanted to learn more about it.
You know, what I love about oceanography is the chance to go to sea and do research. I've always wanted to have the chance to develop a class that's experiential, that gives students the opportunity to learn hands-on. I'm super excited that we can partner with the Inner Space Center to invite K-12 educators and classrooms on board through Telepresence.
Hopefully spark that inspirational light bulb moment in someone.
Just very exciting stuff. I expect to create lifelong memories is the simplest way to put it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Endeavor Live. My name is Holly Morin, and I'm the manager of education and outreach. The education and outreach at the Inner Space Center at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography. I'm clearly so excited to be your host today as the Inner Space Center kicks off another series of Endeavor Live broadcasts. Soon we're going to be actually connecting live to the ship, and we're going to dive into some different ocean science topics and talk about some technology and hear about these upcoming experiences that the scientists, educators, technicians, URI undergraduate students, and other individuals currently sailing on board will be having. The goal here, though, is to keep things really conversational, so your input and questions are really important to the success of this program. So you can ask questions at any time during the broadcast. So you're going to either enter those into the Facebook comment box, or if you're watching through YouTube, the chat box that's there. And we'll try to get to as many questions as we can during this broadcast. So we'll give us a roll right now. We'll get your fingers warmed up here for typing. Why don't you let us know where you're tuning in from? So go ahead, type in your city, your state, your town, where you were watching from. Let us know, and we'll check in with you all in just a moment. So while you're chiming in there, let's talk about how we're actually connecting to the ship, from the ship, connecting with you all. And we're using something called Telepresence. And this remote connectivity is actually something that we've all gotten really good at, right, over these last 2 years. But we're doing a little bit more with Telepresence than just a Zoom call or a Google Meet. We're connecting individuals onshore to ships that are out at sea doing active oceanographic research and making them active participants in deep sea exploration. So here's the Endeavor right now. She's offshore, steaming offshore. And we're able to do this and bring this to you via this satellite remote connectivity and using Telepresence. Can create these highly produced broadcasts. And now we're actually looking to see if we can have participants help navigate remotely operated vehicles or help control their different sampling systems and manipulator arms, etc., all from shore. So really pushing the boundaries there with Telepresence connectivity. Even with these technologies, though, ships are still really critical to oceanographic research. They're the platforms that get scientists and engineers out to sea to conduct their research. And the Endeavor is one of these such vessels. She's a 185-foot research vessel. And since GSO actually received her in 1976, she's carried thousands of scientists, engineers, technicians, students, teachers on more than 650 cruises. And she's traversed more than 1 million nautical miles in support of science. She's operated throughout the Atlantic Ocean into the Mediterranean, from Brazil to Africa and the South Atlantic, and she's even operated in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, all the way to the Pacific, going through the Panama Canal. She's been out as far as Easter Island and Hawaii. So speaking of geography, I see that a few of you have chimed in. Thanks so much. Let's see where everybody's tuning in from this evening. So Sam, thank you for joining us from Friday Harbor, Washington. And then we also have Janice, who's joining from Northern California. Love our West Coast folks here who are joining us this evening. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. So The Endeavour, usually she carries a crew of 12, and then she can accommodate up to 18 scientists and technicians. Right now, she's carrying a suite of scientists and students, 5 undergraduate students, as well as some engineers and technicians that are part of Dr. Melissa Oman's CSI Oceans URI Honors course. This is a class that explores a whole suite of ocean science and technology topics, but it really is unique in that it has this expedition requirement associated with it. So we're going to connect live to the ship now. I know we have Dr. Oman there with us to say hello. There's the ship. It looks nice. It's a much different view than what we had earlier this morning when it was gray skies. I'm happy to see the blue skies. Dr. Oman, why don't you go ahead, say hello to our audiences here, introduce yourself, and let us know, where are you guys going?
Yeah, hi Holly. Hi everybody. I'm Melissa. I'm the chief scientist on the boat and also the instructor for the CSI Oceans class. Right now we are headed a few hundred miles offshore towards what's called the shelf break, where the seafloor sort of sharply drops off to about 4,000 meters. We're visiting a deep ocean mooring that's out there that's part of the Ocean Twilight Zone program, and we're going to be releasing that mooring up to the surface. It's a subsurface mooring with lots of instruments underneath. We're going to release that, bring it on board, recharge batteries, download data, and then we'll be actually putting it back out with some new stuff on it.
Excellent. And as Melissa and I are chatting here, remember, folks, if you have any questions, definitely type them in and we will get to them as soon as we can. If we shift back to that mooring really quickly, it's a vertical mooring, so a length of line per se, with lots of different instruments that will be deployed out on it, including some biodegradable plastic discs that you and your students are hoping to look at.
Yeah, the team of students that are on board this semester, this leg, they are looking at a new type of biodegradable plastic. So they're going to be deploying these discs that are made of a special type of plastic that's actually made by microbes and subsequently are more easily broken down by microbes in the ocean, so that the microbes can completely break this down to, basic elements, carbon dioxide, and not leave behind any microplastics that you guys might have heard of. And so we've got, you can see the different depths there, and we have 2 different treatments that we're going to try out. And so we're putting these discs onto the mooring, and then in about 6 months, when researchers go back out and recover the mooring, then we'll be able to analyze the discs for the degradation amounts and also sequence them to see what types of microbes have grown really well on them.
That's so fascinating that it's plastics that are made by microbes that are going to be broken down by microbes.
Isn't that so cool?
Is it, and this is me not simply not knowing, is it the same microbes? So are you anticipating the ones that produce the plastic are also the same that might be available to break it down?
I think not. I think that we think that they're actually different microbes that might have evolved to be able to break this down really well. But maybe we'll find out that it's some of the same community as well.
Excellent. All right, great. Thank you so much for that. And then on the mooring, I don't know if you want to bring up that picture, Alex, that just shows the audience what exactly it looks like, and they can get a feeling for just how big this mooring or how long it is. And Melissa, if you want to chat to some of the things that we're
sure. Yeah, so unlike the types of moorings that you might have seen that have a lot of big buoy at the surface with lots of meteorological measurements, this buoy actually starts at about 600 meters. It's got a bioacoustic instrument that allows it to look at zooplankton that are doing diurnal migrations and fish in the mesopelagic zone. It's got a sediment trap that's capturing the sinking organic material, the marine snow that's falling out into the deep ocean. We're going to be adding what's called a UVP, which is an underwater vision profiler. It's going to be able to take pictures of some of those small organisms in marine snow. And then it's got the release and the buoyancy balls at the bottom, and finally the anchor.
Awesome. It's going to be really exciting to see this come up on the deck and then again redeploy. I am wrapping my brain around all of this coming up onto Endeavor's deck, and that it's going to be this fantastical game of Tetris to move different buoys and different equipment, and then just the mooring line itself. And I know that we're going to try to set up a time-lapse camera to capture it all, so I think that's going to be really fun when we have it at the end. Yeah. All right, so I know we have some other folks there with you. It's get to know the people in our neighborhood on Endeavor. So in addition to Dr. Oman and the students, who unfortunately, I don't know if we have any students joining us tonight. I think the offshore, I don't know if we have that other water cam that you would like to bring up. Yeah, I don't want to make everybody else seasick that might be tuning into this broadcast, but it's definitely a little bit rough out there. So kudos to those of you that are still upright. But we do have Claire available to chat, and I know she's your tech in your lab. And then we have another individual who it's a mystery guest. I don't know who this is. Where is it? Matt without a mask?
Surprise, surprise. Yep, it's me again.
See, I didn't recognize you without your mask, so I didn't know who you were. Fantastic. So great. So Matt and Claire, why don't you go ahead and say hello to our audience that's joining, and just let them know a little bit about your role on the ship, and then what you'll be working on.
Matt.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm Matt, and I am Melissa's master's student at GSO. And so for this cruise, I'm going to be helping out with a acoustic propagation test that we'll be working on in the second leg of the cruise. So it's going to be a pretty full day. We're going to have a lot of deploying a sound source and pulling it back out of the water a few times. And it's all going to be to test my project, which has to do with basically studying the movements and migrations of animals using acoustic receiving tags.
Excellent. Great. And Claire?
And I'm Claire. I am Melissa's ocean technician, and I help her make, design, test, and throw Minion robots over the side of the boat. And Melissa has one in her lab.
Yes,
Melissa?
she does. That I knew.
Yeah,
So, all right.
I dropped it on the.
Don't do that.
I almost dropped it on the ground.
Let's be sure that we're not throwing them. There is a distinct way that we deploy them. But Melissa, I will say the Minion is well coordinated with your whole outfit here as well. Why don't we speak to the Minion? And it's not just the yellow robot guys that are out, trying to take over the world. But why don't you let us know a little bit more about this technology and how it works? And then I know we have that awesome YouTube video narrated by your 5-year-old daughter that we'll bring up as well. But since you have one there,
Yes.
let's talk about the what you have in your hand there.
Sure. Yeah. It's So the reason that I'm going to put down the microphone for just a second, and you guys might still be able to hear me. Give me a thumbs up if you can, or say something if you can still hear me.
You're good. We can hear you. We got you.
All right.
Yeah.
I pushed it back together. This little part kind of slid apart. So this is the bottom part of the upward facing part of the Minion. It's got a camera on it that you can see that little black square back there, and then it's got an illumination ring that's the white part around it, and some other sensors. So while it's deployed, this is something that we actually put over the boat. We try to gently lower it down, and we release it. It sinks down to the twilight zone, to sort of below about 100 meters down to, we hope it doesn't go more than about 500 meters. And it reaches a neutral density, and it drifts around and collects marine snow on this upward looking surface. So it's a little bit like a tiny sediment trap. And then we collect time-lapse photographs of that in addition to the other measurements. And at the end of the mission, it drops it burns this little loop right here, which allows a weight to drop off. And after that weight drops off, then the battery side becomes the heavy side. And the whole thing actually flips over. There's a traveler inside that by gravity passively kind of slides down there to make it really stable. And then there's the antennas and recovery strobe at the top that pops out of the surface and lets us go get it, and also transmits data over satellites.
Fantastic. So let's see this in motion. This great video narrated by Melissa's daughter. So Alex, if you want to cue that up, that'd be great.
Hello everybody. So
And
this
Timony,
is my mommy's Minion, and it gets dropped from a ship into the water. Deeper and deeper and deeper it goes and goes. And then it gets deeper, and then it stops before it reaches the bottom, and then it takes the pictures, and then it drops the weight, floats back up, and then it goes back, up, and then there's the data coming from that thing.
I love that. Yes, and Melissa's daughter's name is Antimony. I forgot to say that at the beginning there, but yeah, we could watch that just over and over because we've all agreed. So fantastic. It looks like we have some questions coming in, so thank you so much for that, Matt. I think this is actually one for you from Janice Sinclair, and I think this was when you were talking about the acoustics. She wanted to know how the marine life is tracked. So maybe talking a little bit more about your tags they'd be using.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the ocean that a lot of people might not know is that GPS signals, which are carried by electromagnetic waves, are completely unable to pass the ocean surface. If you want to track an animal that is on land, you can put a GPS tracker on it and just kind of leave it at that and then collect it later. But in the ocean, that sort of approach only works for creatures that come up to the surface at regular intervals, like whales or dolphins. And for anything that stays below the surface all the time, that doesn't work at all. But as it turns out, sound energy actually travels really, really well through the ocean. And low frequency sounds can travel for hundreds of miles and still be heard. So we have these sound sources which are placed throughout the ocean. And when you tag an animal that's swimming somewhere in the water, all it has to do is the tag wakes up to record the arrival time of the sounds produced by those sources. And when you collect the tag later, if you have simultaneous arrivals from both different sources, you can actually triangulate the position of the tag. So we deploy these on various different fish. There are plans to put them on like lobster and swordfish, and it doesn't necessarily need to be as large as like a shark or porpoise or dolphin or something like that. And then collect them later, and you can get kind of a whole history of where they've been for, a few weeks or months.
Excellent.
And what's really exciting is with the collaboration with Woods Hole, we're also working on eventually building a pop-off version that can transmit data through satellite, so we don't need to recover the tags. And I think that's when the landscape of this technology will really get transformed.
Definitely, I think so. Because then I'm curious if it's going to pop off, because I know they do this for right whales. They have tags that they will put on them that pop off, but they only stay on for a short window. How long are you hoping then that the tags would stay active on the animals?
That's a great question. Right now, the battery life on the tags is anticipated to be a few years. So as long as we can make them able to withstand ocean conditions for years, and potentially these animals dive really deep, like swordfish dive to close to 1,000 meters. So we have to make them resistant to those pressure changes as well. But I think that there's potential for them to stay on for a long time.
That's so fantastic. That's like fascinating to think about a tag that could withstand that type of pressure differential too, because they're moving through the water column. They don't have to stay at depth and they're diving, and that it would last for that long. That would be excellent.
It's so interesting.
Go ahead.
Things that are small, like small things, can be so much more resistant to pressure because they're so strong. You need a much thinner wall to basically be equally strong if you're very small.
Great.
It's one of the reasons why Minions are great too, because they're pretty small compared to some other robots. And so we can make them out of lower cost materials.
So then it becomes more accessible, and you don't necessarily need to be deploying things from a large ship. You could be doing it from a smaller boat.
That's another advantage. Exactly. Yeah. For Minions, we hope that these can be deployed and recovered from all kinds of vessels.
Excellent. And then that could expand the scope of where they could be deployed.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. See, this is when you guys ask questions, look at where we've gone. We've kind of woven in and out of a bunch of different topics. This is great. So Claire, when it comes to the Minions, so on board are you getting, what is involved in like getting them ready? And then I know you said you throw them overboard, but deploying them, how does that work? And then retrieving them. So I know, and you guys have to do this at night, and why is that?
Yes. all of these questions. So yes, so I've done much of my work beforehand. So the goal actually we had talked about for this trip was for me to have as little work as possible. So right now we've prepped everything, and we have a Minion that's waiting. It has a magnet on its reed switch, which kind of keeps it turned off. And we hope tomorrow afternoon, all we have to do is remove the magnet, and then plug. Drop it in. Not really. We're gonna tie a little rope around it, and we're gonna have Melissa pull a screwdriver out. It's gonna release that rope, and it's going to gently fall into the ocean and perfectly arrive at its prescribed depth. And after 11 hours, it's gonna burn its wire, flip, and come back up and flash. And we will recover this friend. His name is Bob. At hopefully around 4 a.m. And it needs to be dark because it is very challenging to see the little flishy flash during the day when all the sun is bouncing off the waves. So we get to get up very early. But Melissa and I get up early anyway, so we don't mind.
And then when you see the flishy flash,
Yeah.
so you see the flishy flash, you see the strobe, and then what happens?
Well, yes. So we had talked about this before, is that Bob actually sends us an email when he's ready to be picked up, which is a great feature. We check in, he sends us his latitude and longitude, and we'll drive
like
the boat
Uber.
over.
It's like Uber. For
Yeah,
you,
a little
like,
bit. But the trick is that when he sends it, and by the time we get there, he's probably going to have gone somewhere else. So that's where the flashing helps. And we have this Mondo giant net. Alex, can we go to the giant net? There it is.
There it is.
So instead of having a crane to pull this device out, a giant net is the trick. So I think that in terms of recovery of ocean-going sensors, this one's pretty easy.
Great. That is great. And then Janice had actually asked a question about how they're recovered and if people turn them in. So I think that covers it. We hopefully go and scoop them up and
we always hope to recover them. But if someone does find one, please let us know.
And then Matt, actually with your tags then too, maybe that's what this question was about as well, is that if they pop off, is it that same thing? How do you track them in a similar way, or do they have like a code on them that if somebody were to find them that they could turn them in?
Yeah, so with these ones, when they are recovered, since they're deployed on some fish or lobster or crustacean or something like that, most likely they're going to be found by a fisherman. And so when they are recovered, we assume that, they will probably get this and see what it is. And we usually just offer a reward to anybody who will return them to us. Ultimately, the ocean is a big place, and a lot of these get lost. It's very, very difficult to really get a lot of data back. So you have to have a really big deployment in the first place. And so you just hope that enough people will find it and return it to you, or at least, sort of recognize that it's an instrument and look around and see where it's supposed to be. And then you can get at least some of them back.
Awesome. Yeah, I think actually real quick, and along those lines, I'd like to give a nod to the mini boat that you guys are also carrying. So there is an uncrewed mini boat. Those are created by Educational Passages. And it was built by GSO in collaboration with the Central Falls School District. So all of those students in Central Falls worked really hard to put the various components of that mini boat together and signed it and decorate it and have all different types of things in its hull. And so that will also be deployed during this leg. And it basically is carried by the currents, by the wind. It has a sail on it. So you can see here, they're learning about the different parts of the mini boat. And what they'll do is then you can actually track the mini boat. So Central Falls actually launched one earlier, the Square Mile last year. And so if you go online to Educational Passages, you can actually find the Square Mile and see that it was launched again off the shelf, similar to where this boat is going to be launched from. And it's actually gone down. It followed almost a shelf break south, and then it scoobied out and has done loop-de-loos in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's kind of heading towards the Azores now. So it's super exciting that you all have another mini boat. And I know Ms. Alex, who's from Central Falls, is sailing on board with you as well. So hopefully she'll feel well and can be out there when it's launched. And then we'll be able to follow 2 boats. Do you guys have any predictions where you think the mini boat Inspiration, that's the name of the mini boat that was built again, where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think I heard last time the other one made it all the way to Norway.
That would
or at
be
least
the one
one of
that
these
got,
mini boat projects. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rye Riptides.
So,
That's where theirs went. Yep, there it is. Fantastic.
oh, awesome! We got the picture.
Yeah, it was, and
Oh,
if
so
I remember
cool.
this, yeah, if I remember the story correctly. And Cassie, if you're tuned in here, feel free to write a comment. But I think that this mini boat went silent. It was launched off the Atlantic and it went silent. And they hadn't heard from it in a little while. And then after 4 months of silence, it gave one last ping, and it was on this island in Norway, and it had been flipped over, and that's why it had been silent. And so it's been this really fantastic connection now between these students in Norway. The young man there brought it into school, and they've been Zooming. And so the students in Rye, New Hampshire, have been connected to the school group in Norway, and it's just a really wonderful. A great example of oceanography and where currents can take things, but also a great connection, an international connection between these 2 groups of students that may have not met otherwise and can now have this bond and talk about this. And it's just super exciting. So that's why you could never quite know where they're going to end up. So Matt says Norway. I'm with you. I would love to see another one go up that way. Claire, where do you think mini boat Inspiration might end up?
Finland. Going close, but without going over,
Yeah, I see. It's like the $1 price right aspect of things. I can respect that. Melissa, what are your feelings?
Well, we're putting it in between. I'm going to be the physical oceanographer here. We're putting it in between 2 currents. the southward flowing shelf break current and the sort of northward and eastward or flowing Gulf Stream. And so a lot about its fate is going to depend on what happens to it over the first couple of days. So if it gets sort of pushed towards the shelf break, then it'll likely go south. If it gets pushed out further to sea, then it might end up in Finland or Norway.
Got it. All right. So what we all are going to do, so our homework then, is we're going to track the mini boat. And after a couple of days, we can watch the replay of this video and type in Dr. Ullman was right, or where we think it's going to go.
I want to say you didn't actually pick a place. You just said either or.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, there's this great website called windy.com that will show you the winds as well. And so we might be able to do even better if we looked at that for Sunday and looked at which way the wind is pushing it. And that's my my prediction about.
Well, then there you go. You all can do this as a class. You actually could do it as a class with the students, and you can look at Windy and we can make predictions, and we'll see. We could even add it to the spaghetti plot map that the students at Central Falls. Alex, I don't know if you have that handy that shows all the students, and they were actually drawing on a map. It's a really fantastic image. It's beautifully colorful of all these different paths. And there they are with GSO's Office of Public Engagement Director, Peter Hanlon, and then Allie Johnson, I believe it's Johnson, just a grad student that was working with the students as well.
Sarah.
Sarah Nickford, thank you.
Sarah Nickford.
And they are working together, thank you, to map out all the different locations as to where they think it's going to go. And so I love this. And then I can't remember why there's pizzas on there, but there was a reason and other things. But I love it. I think this is great. And again, another fantastic way to have students engaged, learning about oceanography and currents. And I know, Janice, you said this is exciting. It's like the story Paddle to the Sea, which I don't know it. I don't know if anyone else does. It's a kid's book and movie. But yeah, it's just, the mini boat's a really fantastic tool, as are all of the tools and technologies that you all are working on and going to be deploying as part of this cruise. But I know we're getting up on the half hour here. So really quick though, anybody who's watching who wants to, I always like to ask this question when I have brilliant minds here though. Any advice that you have for somebody who might be watching, who's interested in oceanography but doesn't know maybe how to take that jump? What should they be interested in? What should they do? What do you guys think? Oh, now
Matt, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I'm happy to. So I think, you know, the interesting thing is really that it doesn't necessarily need to be like, I want to study this in the ocean, or I want to, you know, go into this specific field. I think that you should start with whatever your big questions are about the world, and think about the things that you don't know and that you maybe would like to know, and try to figure those out. And you can, you know, ask people, you can do reading on your own, you can ask your teachers, but it's really all about just coming up with your own questions, and trying to figure out what the answer is. And that's even, you know, when it comes down to doing research, that's what it's all about too. So I think just sustain your natural curiosity and just see wherever it takes you.
Yeah, be curious.
Excellent. I think that is a fantastic call to action to kind of wrap up the show with. Be curious, friends. Just be curious. And I think that's really what this is all about, what you all are doing. You have questions that you want to answer, and you're using innovative technologies to achieve that and figure things out. Or maybe they're going to lead to more questions, which is sometimes that's another result of doing scientific research, is you might not find your answer. You might actually end up with more questions, and that's okay. That's part of the journey, part of the process for sure. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to chat with us today, and thank you for our audience and asking the questions and your comments. I know that Melissa, just so you know, we had a comment that your video with Intimity was amazing, and they love that. So
I'll let them know.
Future YouTuber there, friend, future YouTuber. But we please continue to follow along with the Inner Space Center and on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, as we provide social media updates for the cruise, let you know what's happening. What time are you guys expected to finally reach the mooring? How long will you be transiting for now?
6:30 a.m.
There it is. Rise and shine, sunrise with the Endeavor. So we'll see what's happening. They'll all have cups of coffee, no doubt, warm coffee. Breakfast was apparently quite fantastic this morning, so we'll see what tomorrow brings. But follow along. And again, there are these public live broadcasts. We have them scheduled for tomorrow, again, right here on Facebook Live or on YouTube at 12 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. So by then, the mooring will be up on the deck, hopefully, and we'll have some other updates to share. And then we'll be connecting live again with the ship on Tuesday, again, public broadcasts at 12 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern as well. If you know school groups or other educational groups that want to connect live and have their own private connection, though, with the ship, we also have those that will happening on Tuesday, March 29th. And you can check out the Endeavor Live page on the IC website for all of those details. Otherwise, again, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Dr. Oman. As always, you've been a great guest all of during today's broadcast. And otherwise, everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. And yeah, there are our water cams again. They're happy, fair winds. That's what it is. And hope everyone stays well. Have a great night. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Thanks,
Holly.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.